How's it going? Shall we turn a little bit more?
Oh, you're good. Finally made it.
That's right.
I love you, bro. Thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
Welcome to Master Keys episode. Let's get that out of the way. Welcome to Master Keys, episode 6, Soul Connection. I'm here with my brother Tapovan. How are you, brother? Nice to have you.
Likewise, thank you for having me.
Oh man, this man I met as soon as I got to Tulum in a Tantra retreat, and ever since he has been a guru, a guide, a friend, a brother, an anchor, a wisdom keeper. Wow, seriously. I met him at the retreat as a yoga teacher, and then little did I know this man was full of wisdom and energy and fun. Yeah. It's been a long journey, a fun journey, from dancing to parties to spiritual work to discipline and having a deeper awareness of self and your own consciousness. This is probably one of the closest person in my life, and I owe this man so much. And I would like to start just by introducing yourself and what you do and where you come from, how your story has unfolded. Just tell the people a little bit about you. I'm sure they're dying to know.
Welcome everybody. My name is Tapovan Tamas. I'm from Hungary originally, and I help people to reconnect with themselves on a deeper level and discover who they are, and helping them to realize to step out of how to step out their own way, right? Because many times we get stuck in our own drama, in our own stories, and unable to see the bigger picture. So just coming back to center, coming back to the heart, and living life simply. I'm coming from also a very, very small village. It was so small that we had to say good morning to everybody, even though we didn't know them, because you never knew who knew your parents. So, and I was an average kid with average, let's say, life, very simple, average, let's say, expectations, and didn't really think about much. And eventually, I was just like, taking jobs that were just for the money, like, nothing too exciting. And at some point, it got me to a point where, like, I was no longer satisfied, and I felt this, like, need to expand, and I was constantly searching for something, but I wasn't sure what I was looking for. I just felt like there is a sense of emptiness or dissatisfaction, and that led me to start, like, looking for answers first outside of myself. And I realized that the world is designed a way to keep us asleep and disconnected. So that was like a big awakening, so to say, to realize that the way out of this kind of predicament is to raise our own vibration and continue to grow. Don't worry about the outside world too much, because that can be very jarring, very overwhelming. Because if you look at the entire picture, then you can't really change the world. Like, okay, what can we do, right? Like, and then people tend to, like, give in immediately. Like, okay, well, yeah, like, what can we do? Like, the world is what it is. And in a way, it is true, right? Because what can you do? But something that you can do is, like, change yourself or work on yourself. You can't change the world, but if everybody start working on themselves, then the world will change. It's very simple. Like, we don't have to get out there and start fighting for this or that. It's just like coming back home and realizing that, if you start living in alignment with your truth and with your values, and you help other people, and then you let them help you, then it's just gonna change the entire trajectory of this planet.
Exactly. It sounds like being authentic with yourself first, and with other people, leading by example. That's a quote that I will never forget. Kobe Bryant's definition of greatness is to lead by example, not by trying to inspire anybody, but just you being you, you finding your own greatness, your purpose, your healing. You automatically inspire others to do the same. And this is something that you have done, and you have inspired me to be more disciplined, to be more focused, to be more open-minded, and to quiet the noise, just focus on myself. So thank you deeply, brother. Like, seriously, you're
My pleasure.
amazing. What are some things that happened in your life that kind of like pushed you down this route? Because I know you're from Hungary, and you like come from like a farm and wine village, and then now you travel the world. You've been to India and Tulum. What are some key points that you say were like that had the domino effect to put you where you are now?
If I really look back, it was happening more in a gradual state, like even from my childhood kind of stage, so to say, because I was growing up in the village. Then I went to high school to the nearby small town, and then from there I went to college to Budapest, to the capital, and then from there I moved to a different country. So there was this constant, like almost like 4 year cycles of like expansion, growth, and yeah, after that, after I went to a different country, I moved to a different continent. I spent 4 years in India studying with yogis, yoga teachers, enlightened masters. So that really like opened up my eyes to what is possible and what's the true purpose of life. Like, I was going through this kind of depressive state of feeling lost and not knowing like which way to go and how to like deal with the world, so to say, because I just felt like the world is just crushing on me. And I was listening to videos on YouTube, and it was like back in the days when YouTube was like very different from what it is now.
No commercials, free.
And I heard like a Buddhist monk talking about enlightenment, and it's kind of like that was my aha moment, this light bulb in my head, like, oh, okay, like I think this is what I need. I didn't know what enlightenment was, but I associated it with some more clarity, and when you feel lost and uncertain, and then clarity sounds like a good idea to have, even though I didn't know the depth of what it was. And then as soon as I had that kind of interest, I watched another documentary, Jesus' Life in India, and then my intuition was telling me like, you have to go to this place. And I was like, okay. So I made some arrangements, and I went to India to try it out for 6 months, and I stayed for 4 years, and really just surrendered to the flow and not really worrying about anything, but just like listening to the calls and the guidance, and everything just fell into the right place, just like a puzzle coming all together one by one. And I met 3 enlightened masters and studied with each of them. They taught me many things, and I started implementing basically their teachings, and that was very like life-changing in a way, that not just reading from books, but like I had like full trust. Like, it's okay, whatever they say is backed up by now even science, neuroscience, quantum physics, and different scriptures. So I had trust in them, and I just was following those footsteps, and really changed my life.
Yeah. Man, it's been a long journey since then, bro. And now everybody kind of like feels this about you, just with your presence. Like, you're very mystic. This is so like, I hear this, I see it, but then you're also like very fun. You love to dance and like you don't take life too seriously. So it's a joy to watch you move, man. We met at a Tantra retreat and you're like a Tantra teacher. What would you say, what is Tantra to you and the difference between like the New Age Tantra, which is more like sex driven, and the retreat where we met, when I landed in Tulum about a year and a half ago? The biggest thing that I learned is that it's the duality of the feminine and masculine energy that we both have within ourselves and the roles that we play, and the pain, the trauma, but also the healing journey with the masculine and feminine energies. What would you like to say about Tantra?
I mean, Tantra is a huge subject, and the word itself has different meaning depending on who you ask, right? The original version, which is rooted in tradition and coming from India, it is a path of enlightenment, basically. The word literally means a device to expand, Tantra. And then what are you expanding? It's basically expanding your consciousness without limits, because eventually the nature of the universe is infinite, limitless. But this is not how we experience ourselves, because we are the limit itself. No, like your body has its boundaries, and then where your sensation ends, then that's where you end as your identity. No, like, oh, this is me. I feel this. Oh, this is not me. Very simple. There is the limited self and then infinite self. So it is the science of becoming infinite, or experience yourself as infinite, because we are always infinite, no? But this is not how we experience ourselves, so there is this kind of separation. And Tantra is a science to help you to realize that. And then it has many different kind of tools, like asana practice, because traditional Hatha Yoga is rooted in Tantra. Breathing techniques, pranayama, breath work, then certain visualization techniques, energy work, working with your chakras, working with your nadis, your energy channels, and awakening the kundalini, and basically using every kind of opportunity to expand your awareness or your presence. So let's say like conscious eating, like how you eat your food, how you cook your food, how you walk on the street, and how you drive your car, how you work. So basically, Tantra is making everything into your practice. How you make love. So that's where how sexuality is really included in Tantra, is to use sexuality as well as a vehicle towards liberation or enlightenment. So it's not, the original Tantra does not really focus on sexuality at all. Actually, very few books. Like what Tantra means is like usually books, like scriptures of certain traditions. And there are hundreds of major Tantras, and there are probably like thousands of smaller books, which all talks about some kind of spiritual practice. It could be ritualistic, it could be asana-based, kriyas, so to say, meditations, and some of them, very few of them actually discusses sexuality and how sexuality can be a path of your growth. But, you know, when few people from the West during the last century, they went to India and then they got exposed to Tantra, they almost immediately started focusing on the sexual aspect. Why? Because it's pleasant. You know, nobody wants to sit in meditation in a cave for like hours, for days or weeks and months or years on end. But, you know, sexuality was like, oh, this is like a fancy loophole where we can go through and like, you know, package perhaps our perversion in a different way, and then we can still play it out without, you know, just making something, let's say, unholy holy, so it's more accepted. But like if you skip the self work, then it's a slippery slope, because basically sexuality is not recommended for people who are starting out their journey because they haven't purified their so-called weaknesses or like inner demons, which is like greed, lust, fear, anger, and all of these things that we need to like go through as a spiritual aspirant. That if those things are not purified and dealt with, and then you enter into like practices like where you use alcohol, for example, or sexuality, then it can really just feed your inner demons even more, even though you may feel like, oh, you're doing something good or like you're progressing, but eventually later on, it's gonna just feed into that aspect of yourself that you're trying to like surrender and go beyond. So it's important to get that preliminary practices, purification before someone enters. So then we have clear intention and yeah, good values. So we act in integrity. Otherwise, it can turn into this kind of modern day tantric orgy kind of thing. Yeah.
And the tantric orgy and all that, like, what do you think about that? Like, because like for me personally, what I believe in when it comes to sex and being intimate is like we think we want sex because it's pleasurable, but that's what the body wants. But in reality, we don't want sex. We want intimacy. We want real connection. So I mean, to each their own, obviously, and what's right for me may be not right for somebody else. But me personally, if my sexuality, if my love is spread out with several women, I'm not getting 100% of anybody. They're getting a little bit of me, or I'm getting a little bit of them. So in my eyes, the way I see it is, I want intimacy and connection and safety and vulnerability with somebody that I can see and can see me, and then we co-create a synergy together to manifest our life. How do you see that? Because that, I feel like the world is kind of getting lost in that, and I believe it's kind of it's because they're afraid to be fully seen. Like I only want you to see what I want you to see, or only certain parts of me, but not me fully, because that's too terrifying. Because then you'll see my shadows.
Yeah, 100% agree. The thing is, people can use sexuality as an escapism, no? The same as, it's just another drug. It can, because sexuality is addictive, or can be addictive, no? Like people can get addicted to porn, people can get addicted to sex, alcohol, drugs, tobacco, whatever not. So basically, any kind of addiction is just a crutch or like a tool that we can lean on to deal with our inner discomfort, some kind of suffering, you know. There's something that we are not willing to face within ourselves, and we are trying to suppress that.
Distraction.
Yeah. Distraction, suppression, you know, and then sexuality is just one of those things, but it can give you the false idea of that you're actually doing something good, because like the entire concept is kind of wrapped into a very attractive packaging. So it's being sold that, oh, you're doing the right thing, like don't worry, like you can just express yourself, be who you want to be, but then you just have to like check in with yourself. Are you really making a progress, or just digging yourself deeper into a hole which you may not realize in the moment, but later on, it will have effect.
Yeah. You're a man of many talents, especially in the spiritual realm and with consciousness, from yoga, tantra, meditation, breath work, pujas. You work with Kali. What are the biggest sacred practices or tools that you have learned along the way that you say that have been best or most powerful for you in your transformation to on the road to enlightenment or reaching higher levels of consciousness?
In my opinion, the most sacred practice that you can do is, finding stillness. Because the mind is constantly like running on an autopilot, and there's like, if you sit down, you realize there's so much noise inside. And you don't even realize this until you actually take the effort to sit down and start observing your mind, or somebody tells you like, okay, sit down and don't think about anything, and then you realize you can't do that because the mind just like constantly like producing thoughts, and it's not your fault. Everybody kind of goes through the same kind of process because it is the nature of the mind to produce thoughts. That's the same as like how the heart is constantly beating, like you're trying to tell your heart like, okay, stop beating. So it's not like actually stopping your mind, but finding the balance to make it work when it needs to work, and then when it's time to rest, then you can rest, and then it's not like acting out of like compulsiveness. So you can find inner peace, because if you think about what is causing you suffering, like, is it like physical pain, or is it like your mind is telling you that you are unworthy, you are inadequate, and things not going to work out the way you wanted, or like things that you need not going to happen. So it's always pretty much like 90% of our suffering is coming from our own mind, right? And perhaps like 10% is when you have like trauma, or someone physically abuses you, or you have an accident or something like that. But that's like, it doesn't happen very often, right? But there's so many people who are constantly in a state of suffering.
Yeah, I've heard this thing, and I think it was Jim Carrey, and he said 99% of suffering, if not 100%, is caused by your mind, because pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. So it's maybe it's even 100% caused by you. Like, you don't have to suffer. Pain is one thing, and that's pain. Yes, we will feel pain. That's for everybody. But suffering is like you choosing to suffer. And as I'm saying that, is I'm talking to myself, as we always are. Every word we've ever spoken in life, we're talking to ourselves. It's the voice inside of ourselves. It's the vibration inside of ourselves. We are all one, and we're part of this collective consciousness. But it's like how you choose to see life, or how you choose to see pain. Like something that I could suffer from that I didn't enjoy, but you lived it with me, you could see it as like a learning tool and really grow from it and expand your life, whereas in turn I would be suffering from the exact same thing. So it all comes down to perception.
Yeah, I think there's great power in suffering, like people think like, oh, suffering is bad. I'm not saying it's a pleasant thing, right? But in terms of purpose, like, a lot of people learn the hard way. So there are like very big lessons of like, going through heartbreak, or losing someone who you really like, or you really love, like, or, going through any kind of like shocking event that like really changes your life. And then when you are in that moment, it can be very jarring and difficult. But when you look back, like a year, 5 years, 10 years later, you realize like, okay, that one specific event changed your life for the better, or help you to become and grow like big time, to make like a huge leap forward. Because if you just stay in your comfort zone, then everything is good and nothing needs to change, and you just continue living the same way how you were living before. But when you go through something really harsh, then it really makes you think and rethink and observe things from a different perspective, and that's basically how you're gonna end up changing your life. Like, you just change your perspective and the world's gonna change, because you don't see the same thing anymore.
We don't change the outside world by trying to change the things around us. We change the way we see things, our internal world, and then the things outside of us change. That's exactly it, bro. One thing that you do very well is meditate, and you don't teach people this. You do in puja, but like just me living with you and being your friend and seeing you do this has deeply inspired me to meditate more. Now I'm up early in the morning. I try to meditate as long as I can and really like tap into stillness, because you really start to see. I've taken the time to take days to myself where I don't speak to anybody. I just keep to myself. And I thought it would have been hard because I love to talk now. But it's really not that hard, and you start to see how your mind has patterns and how you see things, but it's really not true. It's like you can think something to be true your whole life, but then you really sit with it. You hear somebody else say it, you hear yourself say it, and then you question it. It's like, is it true? Am I attached to this perception? And when I sat in puja with you for the first time, I was fascinated just by the energy that was there. The how like we don't need external sources like drugs or plant medicine to really create this energy, this aura, this like Super Saiyan like you really feel the energy moving within you when you're doing puja. Can you please describe to the people about what is puja and what got you to devote your life to Kali? Because Kali is also extremely powerful, and I'm sure people have a misconception of her as well.
It's very difficult to talk about something that you have never experienced, because most people never experienced it or don't even know what it is. So just to give a context, puja is coming from Hinduism. It's Hindu ritual, a deity worship. It's very much part of Tantra. Tantra revolves a lot around using mantras, like sacred sounds, words, sentences that carry frequency. And that frequency is sometimes the body of the deity. And when you keep repeating those mantras, then you begin to unlock the energy that is encoded in the mantra. And that can create an energy field that can put you into like a euphoric state. So you get higher energy basically. And frequency and vibration. And it's not something new, because the Tibetan use it, the Buddhist, and also, there is speculations on that the pyramids were built through sacred frequencies as well, like how those huge blocks were taken where they are now and how they were placed, and because every single block is completely unique, and then some of them weighs more than like 50 tons, or some of them even 100 tons, like how those huge kind of rocks were moved and put into the right place,
and how perfectly they are stacked. Like there's no, like they're perfect.
Yeah, with the precision. So there is a theory that they were using sacred sounds and vibrations to make things levitate. So that's kind of, for me, it's more imaginable than perhaps 200,000 people trying to pull a rock with ropes on logs on sand. It's like even when I was a kid, it just didn't sound right. And
It doesn't make sense.
So whatever. But back to your question. So
why Kali?
Yeah, so it doesn't matter like who you connect with. It's important to like connect with an aspect of divinity that you can relate to. And depending on what you're trying to achieve with your practice, but the ultimate aim of Tantra is to realize your divinity within yourself. So first there's an external worship of the divine, which is the deity, or using a statue as a representation, but really honoring the divine. And as you progress on your path, eventually there is a merging of you and the divinity. So then you are no longer looking for answers outside of yourself, but you realize that you are the divine. So there's a merging, and that is basically moksha, enlightenment, liberation. You realize your oneness with everything else. So.
Yeah, bro. When we did the puja for the first time at the retreat, I was paying attention to everything you were saying and doing. I still remember seeing the video of how my focus was just like there. Because when I grew up, the only thing I knew